Welcome back to Jennifer Broussard Art. Today we're going to paint the next duck of the month, where I teach beginner mixing and watercolor techniques. The December duck is this very silly Canada goose in a Santa hat. I'm using New York Central paper in cold pressed 100% cotton on an 8x8 block. And M. Graham paints, this is the same plate as last month, nickel azo yellow, quinacridone rose, and phthalo blue green shade. I also have a blob of phthalo blue red shade. You can get the outline and the sample painting on my Patreon channel, link in description below. Let's get started. Let's start by getting the excess graphite off the paper. Using a kneaded eraser, rolled into a little log, and I put it in a little container to keep it from drying out. And now I'm going to start with the body. First this is the same Canada goose as the September duck of the month. So it's very similar. I'm going to do practically the same thing, is just wet the whole body first. I'm going to not wet the neck. Don't forget, you can get the outline for this duck and all of my ducks of the month on my Patreon channel. Just sign up as a free member. You don't have to pay for anything. I cleaned off my plate from last month, but I left all of this because that's just gold. I'm not going to get rid of that. I'm going to use it in this painting, probably on the body and, everywhere on this painting. So I'm just going to leave it there. Now I'm going to make a little bit of a brown. I'm going to try this. I'm going to get red first. Add a little yellow until we get an orange. And now we're kind of more on the red side. And I'm going to add some blue. I'm going to get the green shade and add that in and see how brown it gets. Okay, it's kind of a reddish brown. So let's add some yellow. And then a little more blue. That is almost what I want. I want to add a little more red because it's leaning towards green. And then that's what I want. And I will use this on the first layer of the goose, and then we'll probably use this for the second layer. So the first layer is all wet and wet. And I'm going to try to remember that on this paper, I'm not going to be able to lift as well as I can lift on Arches paper. So I'm going to just take this color and right across the front of the body, I'm going to make some swoops, leaving some white still showing. Same up here. And this is going to help it look round. Okay, on the wing, I'm going to do the same kind of thing. So these are kind of going horizontal and these are kind of going vertical. Now I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to mix it dark. Look, let's do the hat. That's the fun part. I'm going to do the hat. Get some of the pink, and I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to it to make it red. That is a pretty Santa hat red. Go right over the whole hat. And now remember, we're doing our first layer, so this is just filling in. Okay. I think we can go ahead and do the legs. We're going to bring this color down to about where a knee would be. Actually, let's just do the whole leg in that color. If this is your first time encountering one of my duck paintings, you should know that I have, this is my 12th one. Now I will have, after this one, 12 ducks of the month, each one with a theme for that month, where I teach beginner mixing and beginner watercolor techniques. In this series, we've learned how to glaze quite a bit and layer. I once made a calendar with all of the ducks and gave them out as gifts for my family. Okay, let's do this over here, but not go too far. This is such a pretty color. And now I'm going to do this. I'm going to drop, this is a little bit damp now. I'm going to just drop in some clear spots of water. I don't know if it's going to really show much on this really light color, but it will give it a little bit of underlying texture. Now, while that's drying, let's go ahead and make our dark. I'm going to take this red. So a pretty good puddle of red. I'm going to get the phthalo blue. Makes a nice purple. And I'm not going to be very timid with the yellow this time. I'm going to get a good swipe of it right off the blob and put it in here. Now we have an interesting looking dark green, like a dark olive green. And whenever we have green, we want to go opposite the color wheel and add a little bit more red. And that was a lot of red. So now it's tinted a little bit red, and now we're going to get a little bit more blue. A little more. And that's a good gray. It's not as dark as I wanted because every time I dip my brush in the water to rinse it to get another color, I'm introducing a little bit of water to the petal. But that's okay. This is just the first layer anyway. So let's do the face and the beak. And remember, it is going to dry lighter than what we see at the moment. I'm going to go right over the eye too. And be careful of the white patch. Do the neck. I love how it separates on the plate. It is so pretty. I'm okay if it bleeds out into the body a little bit. It's actually more natural. There. Let's do the feet. I'm going to put a little bump right there. I'm going to go right over the toes. Same here. I'm going to come up a little higher. Before I go any further, I want to soften this a little bit. There. Okay, I'll let it dry. It's all dry, and now I'm going to work on the wing and the back of the duck. I switched to a number 4 silver white. It has a little bit more snap than the DaVinci. Let's get this color. It's sort of a gray-green, so I'm going to add a little bit of red to it and a little bit of yellow. And now we've got sort of a darker version of whatever that was. And I'm going to go like this. And what I do is I tend to push my brush down onto the plate, and it kind of flattens it. And now it has sort of a thinner edge. It's not a point. And I can do this. I'm holding the brush at a slant. Do some little C shapes in here that are kind of thin to show some feather texture. And then these can come down around. This part of the duck right here is light, like a comma shape. So I'm going to take and do all these right up next to the wing and coming down. Got some dry brush going there. I'm going to get some of this color. This is just a gray that was left over on the plate. I'm going to add that in on here. I want to leave some of the paper showing, some of that underlying wash, and I want to leave some of that second layer showing. It's going to be a little bit darker back here. And now I've gone over it a couple times. It's now like a wet and wet. I'm going to get some of this in between. Come up here again. I want there to be just a hint of a dividing line between the 3 elements. Get rid of that. I'm going to wait to do this until this is dry. So I think I'll go down, let's go down to the feet. We're going to do a little bit darker layer on this. This is our 3rd layer on the feet and legs. And this time I'm going to go over the toes. And leave that webbing, that webbed area showing, the webbed part of the feet. I'm going to soften this. And I'll do the same thing over here. Get the dark. And I'm going to go over the toes. Seems like this toe is sort of, there we go. I'm going to add just a little more pigment in here. Maybe we won't have to do another layer. Make it a little darker here at the ankle to show bendy. Make it look bendy. Make this a little bit darker, a little bit pointier. Okay. And while we're still waiting for this to dry, let's do another layer on the neck. So we need to make more. I learned the hard way that you should cover your mixing area, guard it from your painting, because then you'll get splashes on your painting that you don't want. Okay, so there's a nice pretty blue. Gonna get a little bit of yellow. That yellow, a little bit goes a long way. So now you can see it's so nice olivey green. I'm gonna add more of the red, which turned it a little bit brown, which will actually be a really nice brown for this bird. I'm gonna make a little dam between the two. And I'm gonna save that for the bird, and I'm gonna turn this dark with a little more blue and a little bit more red. All right, yellow, come to the rescue. Nope, that's a pretty brown too. More blue. Okay, that's pretty good. Now this time I'm going to do the beak. No, sorry, the head and not the beak. I can barely see my lines, so I'm going to go right over them. Don't be afraid to turn your book or your paper around. This is the perfect example of value being more important than the color. Yes, the color is important, but on this dark color, this dark value, it's okay to have it leaning towards blue or leaning towards purple. It's dark, and that's what matters. I'm going to take some clear water and a damp brush and soften that a little bit. I think that beak looks really pretty like that. Okay, I'm going to actually add some of this bluey color to this because these look a little bit too brown. Damp brush. I don't want it to be overpowering. A little more over here. I want these to go, I guess. There. This feels dry. It's not totally dry because I can feel the bump in the paper, but it's dry enough that we can work on it. I'm going to get some of this dark and put it here on the bird. A little bit up here. I just got a little bit off of it, off the brush, onto my t-shirt that I'm using. Look at this color. And you don't have to be realistic about it. You can add purples and reds and oranges. It's totally up to you. Make it your own. Let's do this side, the tail. There's a little bit of this gray color right here, grayish brown. Damp brush to soften. And then this dark color is up here. These are just ruffly tail feathers, so don't worry too much about them being all perfect. We want there to be a suggestion of a line right here. This is where the wing is. And then this comes down onto here. I'm going to get a smaller brush. I'm going to get a 0. There's a little line right here. And then this is dark. And I'm going to take this color and go in between these feathers. And then this has some feathers as well that are different from these feathers. And we can do this, and I'm not going to use a 0. I'm going to go back to the 4. Get some of this. And I'm going to do the same thing I did over here, but in a lighter value and in a different direction, sort of. I want a lighter value, so I dipped it in water and dabbed it on my paper towel. Okay, that looks good. Let's get some of this, little bit of this that we saved, and put on here. You can change your direction, go from left to right and right to left, so that the feathers sort of meet in the middle. And then down here, and I'm going to take some clear water and I'm just going to do this to muck it up a little so it doesn't look so, I don't know, we don't need that many hard edges, I guess is what I mean. And we're going to do the same thing on the wing, but this time I'm going to take this color, this lighter color, and I'm going to do this. See it splashing? So I'm taking the brush on its side and dabbing. And this is how you can get texture without being, you know, super studious about it being perfect. And I'm going to do the same thing with the water. I'm going to just dab it in the opposite direction. I'm going to take this, I think, and dab it on here. If you ever get something, you know, on the white of your paper, you just take some water and go over it a few times and dab it off. Okay, now while this is sort of wet, I'm going to get the dark on a damp brush. My brush doesn't have much water, and I'm going to wick it. And I'm going to do the same thing in different spots, just around. Same colors and everything, but different textures in different directions can delineate all of these different areas. And I think I'm good for the whole body of the goose. Now we just need to do the hat and the face. So I'm going to use this number 4, and we need another red. I'm going to take this and put it over here and add a little yellow to it to make it red. I want more pigment. And look at that. Okay, we need a little shadow there. And we need little, first let me soften that. Damp brush. Bring that over. Going to add a little bit more of a purpley red to that. And along the seam with the white. A little bit more. I'm going to put a little bit right up here. I'm going to go over that whole thing again with this red. And now the eye, I'm going to try this, and I don't know if it's going to work. I'm going to get my 0 and make it damp, and I'm going to just kind of drill an eye in. Oh, it worked. You do it again. Doing it this way avoids us trying to go around objects. So you can do this with eyes, and you can do it with things that don't have to have a real stark value change. I'm going to get out the bleed-proof white now. Get a tiny little dot and add it right there. And now I'm going to get some of this darker color and add it to the very bottom of the beak, coming up a little ways from the bottom of the jaw, a little bit more. And I'm going to do a nostril. There's a nostril right here. And there's a little indent right there. I'm going to have to make that nostril darker in a minute once that all dries. And I want to just make sure now that I have all my values how I want them. We have our darks. We definitely have our mediums and our very lights. I do want to go over these tail feathers a little bit more, get them a little bit more, more contrast in this area. This can be a little bit more color. And then this can have a little more. In here. It's really fun to add fantasy colors like purple. I'm going to make a purple. If I can get enough red, I can make a purple. Good enough. I'm going to add some pinks in here, some purples. Be right in here. This is a Christmassy holiday kind of duck, so it's fun to add those kinds of colors. You can put the pigment on and then spread it out with water. I think that looks so good. I'm going to add a little more dark patches in here with my number 4. Yeah, that's dry enough. I'm going to go like this. because feathers really do have a pattern. So I'm going to apply a controlled pattern there. There. And then lastly, we're going to add water to the hat, just to this white area, and add a little bit of gray. And then we're going to take it off. Damp brush. And now we're going to do the same thing with the little ball. We're going to go around, add water, add a little gray. I don't know if you can even see that. I'm going to go get some of this dark and add it around randomly there. I'm going to actually like that. I'm going to do that up here. Add it randomly within the white of the hat. And then finally, a little bit of a shadow under the feet. Okay, damp brush, and we'll soften. I love it when I do that and the shadow colors separate. Probably shouldn't have gone this far up, but oh well. There, just enough shadow to ground. I'll do a little bit more. Damp brush. Okay. There we have it for our 12th and final duck in our Duck of the Month series. I have one more painting to go, and that is for you to make the cover. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.